Let's talk about LeQuint Allen, shall we?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, on today's show, we are talking about LeQuint Allen, the starting running back for Syracuse football the last two seasons, and what he is going to do this offseason. He's got three choices. He can come back to Syracuse, he can potentially go to the NFL, or he can transfer out of the program. That's what we're talking about here on this edition of Locked On Syracuse. Let's start off this podcast talking about LeQuint Allen's situation. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see to the right of me on today's show. And, well, I'm going to tell you exactly that. LeQuint Allen is meeting with Coach Fran Brown tomorrow to go over his status if you are watching this on Monday, December 30th. If you're watching this on Tuesday, well, then guess what? He's meeting with Fran Brown today to go over his future. He said that post-game after the Holiday Bowl, okay? And it was one of the main takeaways I had from the Holiday Bowl is that LeQuint Allen is meeting with Coach Fran Brown on Tuesday to go over his future. He has been Syracuse's starting running back the past two seasons, and he took over for Sean Tucker, who was a very, very good running back for the Orange. He actually set the record, I believe, in 2021 for the most rushing yards ever in a single season for Syracuse football. He is now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFL. LeQuint Allen over the past two seasons has back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing years. He has averaged well over 4 yards per carry, which is good. He's got 102 catches the past two seasons, including 64 this previous season. Guys, he is one of the better running backs in the ACC, if not the country, and retaining LeQuint Allen is vital for Syracuse football in 2025 if they want to win at a high level. In 2023, LeQuint Allen had 10 touchdowns. In 2024, he led the ACC with 20 total touchdowns. In 2023, he was ACC's second team. And in 2024, despite leading the entire conference in touchdowns, he was only an honorable mention. But regardless of how you feel about him only being an honorable mention, this we cannot deny. He is one of the best running backs in the ACC, if not the entire country. LeQuint Allen this offseason, he's got three choices he can possibly make. He's got three of them, okay? Number one, he can come back to Syracuse. He's got another year of eligibility. He has thrived with the Orange ever since being recruited back in 2022, and he would be the clear lead back for Syracuse in 2025. So there's that option. And right now, if I had to guess where LeQuint Allen is going to end up, I think it's going to be back with Syracuse, but that is entirely a gut feeling. There is no sourcing on that whatsoever. Number two, LeQuint Allen can try the NFL. I believe the deadline for LeQuint Allen to declare for the NFL draft is January 15th. And you might be saying, if you are a loyal watcher or listener or follower to this podcast, you might be saying, well, Kyle McCord has it on January 6th. Why are the two different? The reason why it's different is because LeQuint Allen is simply younger. LeQuint Allen was recruited in 2022, meaning he has been out of high school for 3 years. It does mean he's eligible, but he has to declare that eligibility because he'd be leaving college early. So that's why they give those guys, they give underclassmen until January 15th. For a guy like Kyle McCord, he is automatically eligible for the NFL draft. Now, he would still probably announce that he's entering the NFL draft, but he's automatically available, and he would have to declare that he is not going to enter the NFL draft because he is an upperclassman. So that is a long-winded way of me saying that LeQuint Allen, because of him being younger, he's got until January 15th to make up his mind on whether or not he wants to enter the NFL draft as an underclassman. And option number 3 for LeQuint Allen, and this is the option, I don't know if it's less likely, but certainly possible of the 3, he could transfer. It could happen. It's a possibility, right? It's the NIL world. It's the college landscape. No player is safe no matter who the player is. They can always transfer, right? And I want to make sure I announce this correction because I did pin it in the comment section below of the last podcast I did, the last full one, I should say, about the offensive line. Syracuse played in the bowl game on December 27th. If you recall, the deadline for players to enter the portal was December 28th, but since Syracuse is playing on the 27th, they got 5 extra days to enter the portal during the fall window. So that means Syracuse players have until January 1st, 2025 to enter the fall transfer portal window. They could technically enter the portal in the spring. There's a 10-day window that opens from April 16th to the 25th. But for the most part, if a player is on the roster after the deadline to enter in the fall, they are likely going to stay on that roster come the 2025 regular season. Okay, so I think with LeQuint Allen, that's basically a way of me saying if he's going to transfer, I believe it would be sooner rather than waiting towards the spring. But it could, in theory, happen. So once LeQuint Allen makes up his mind, we can really discuss what it means for the program. That's not what this episode is going to be about, what it means for the program, because quite frankly, we don't know what he is going to do. We don't, right? And I don't want to do a podcast after he either stays with Syracuse, declares for the NFL draft, or decides to transfer, repeating the same thing that I told you guys on a previous podcast. So that's why coming up, what we are going to do is lay out the pros and cons of each choice that LeQuint Allen could make this offseason. And once again, he's got 3 of them. He can return to Syracuse, he can go to the NFL, or he can transfer in the coming days. So coming up, we are going to talk about the pros and cons to understand the context behind LeQuint Allen's decision. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings them together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. I'm Jackson Holzer, and this is Locked On Syracuse. And folks, if you like what you're hearing, be sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button. Not only is it completely free, it helps the channel grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. On this edition of Locked On Syracuse, we are talking about LeQuint Allen and the decision that he has to make this offseason and really in the next couple of days. What is he going to do, right? That's what we're talking about here on this episode. He's got 3 choices, like I told you guys in the previous segment. He could stay at Syracuse, he can go to the NFL, or he can transfer out of the program but still remain in school. And he is talking with head coach Fran Brown, according to himself, after the Holiday Bowl. He is talking with him tomorrow if you are watching this on Monday. So he is talking with him on December 31st of 2024 to go over his future. On this segment, we are going to go over the pros of LeQuint Allen with each of the 3 choices. And then later on in the podcast, we're going to talk about the cons of each of the 3 choices because with every choice that you make, no matter what it is in life, there are pros and cons to everything, and we have to understand the bigger picture of LeQuint Allen's decision. All right, let's start off with staying at Syracuse. And there are two big pros here. Number one, the comfort. LeQuint Allen is a New Jersey kid. Allen has been with the program since 2022. He has gone through a coaching change, and not only did he, quote unquote, survive the coaching change, he actually got better in 2024 than he was in 2023. So there's that comfort there. He's been with this program now for 3 years. You kind of know the way it works around the program. You've been with a couple of head coaches. Fran Brown's not going anywhere next season, right? Obviously not. A lot of comfort for LeQuint Allen to stay at Syracuse. Number two, he's got a guaranteed lead role if he stays with the Orange. LeQuint Allen, make no mistake, is going to be the workhorse back for Syracuse football again in 2025 if he decides to come back. I like Yassine Willis, the true freshman from this past season. Will Nixon is going to be back from injury this upcoming year. He was the transfer from Washington, but he got hurt and really didn't play a whole lot. But I liked what I saw from Will Nixon when he played. And we'll see if there's any other running back on the roster that can potentially emerge. But let's be clear. Let's not sugarcoat this. Let's not make a mistake. LeQuint Allen, if he comes back for 2025, he's the man in the backfield. Period. End of story. He's really good, and we should want him back being that lead back. So those are the two pros of staying in school, staying with Syracuse, I should say. Number two, the NFL. The pros of the NFL. Number one, it's fulfilling a dream. I imagine for most football players, making the NFL is the ultimate goal. It's the ultimate dream. And I think that Allen, at minimum, will one day be at an NFL training camp. And I can see him potentially having a productive NFL career. Number two of going to the NFL is it could be a nice salary for the one and only LeQuint Allen. It depends on where he's drafted, or even if he's drafted in 2025. But let's say LeQuint Allen does get a good NFL evaluation. He could get a nice salary. And money matters. Money talks, especially in sports. Okay? I believe the minimum salary for a draft pick over the course of a few years, of course, is a little over $4 million. That's pretty good. Wouldn't you say so? But more on that salary in the next segment, because it's not all peachy, I promise. But it could be a nice salary if it works out for LeQuint Allen. If he goes to the NFL draft, gets drafted, and stays with the team for a few years, could be good for him. And number three, there's transferring. What are the pros of transferring? Well, there's one that's super duper important, and that is NIL. I think LeQuint Allen can certainly play at a program that's a higher level than Syracuse. And that's not me degrading Syracuse. It's me understanding reality. I think the program's certainly on the come up, especially after a 10-3 season. And maybe one day Syracuse can get to that level. But for now, we're not quite there yet. We're not there yet. It's okay. We're certainly better than where we were the last few years, right? But we're not on the level of, let's say, Alabama or Georgia or anything like that. We're not there yet, okay? So what do I mean by that? LeQuint Allen can play at a higher level than Syracuse. He can. And I believe he can play at a higher conference than the ACC. And these schools will typically have bigger budgets, which means they can probably offer more money than what Syracuse can do. And getting the money in football is very, very important. Because according to the NFL, only 1.6% of Division I football players are going to make the NFL. And even if you're in that fortunate 1.6%, the average NFL career is 3.3 years, according to Statista.com. It's a reliable website. To further that point, the average NFL career for a running back is the shortest of any NFL position, just about 2.5 years. And LeQuint Allen's a running back. Think about that for a moment. Because of these statistics, I will never ever, ever, ever criticize a football player for taking the money. Never. I'm not saying LeQuint Allen's going to do that. Nope, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm telling you is that if he decides to transfer, I am almost certain that there is a program out there that can offer more money than Syracuse. And that certainly has to be a factor in your decision. It's in football, it's not like you can retire at 65 and live off your Roth IRA that you saved over all of those years of working. You can't just do that. Most players who play football, they're done by their mid-20s. And then what are you going to do? So those are the pros of every possible choice that LeQuint Allen can make. If he decides to stay at Syracuse, there's that comfort and there's that guaranteed lead role. If he goes to the NFL, he's likely fulfilling a dream and he could get a nice salary. Money talks. And number 3, there's transferring. If he decides to transfer, I imagine there is a school out there that can probably offer more money than Syracuse. If I'm missing any more pros, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Coming up, we are going to talk about the cons of each of the choices that LeQuint Allen has to make this offseason. Stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. We just talked about the pros of each choice that LeQuint Allen can make this offseason. Those 3 choices being he could stay at Syracuse, he can go to the NFL, or he can transfer. Okay? Now let's talk about the cons of each decision. Let's talk about staying at Syracuse. What is the con of that? Well, in my opinion, I think it could come down to NIL money. Now, I am sure that Syracuse can put together a nice NIL package for LeQuint Allen to stay. But it all comes down to which other program would want a guy like LeQuint Allen and if they have a bigger budget or not than Syracuse, or if they're simply willing to just pay him more in NIL. So basically, that is a way of me saying to you that if LeQuint Allen decides to stay with Syracuse, he might have to leave some money on the table. That is a possibility. We don't know that for certain, but it's certainly possible that there is a team out there that could offer him more. And so therefore, yes, he would be leaving the comfort, but he would be getting more money. More on that in a moment. Let's talk about the NFL. And that salary that I told you guys about, the minimum salary. I got so much prepped for this segment, okay? I got so much on the NFL. So I told you guys that an NFL salary isn't as peachy as it looks. First off, if his evaluation is that he's not going to get drafted, then he's not going to the NFL, or that I would advise LeQuint Allen, do not go to the NFL just to be an undrafted free agent. I think that would be a really foolish decision, considering you can go back to school and make that NIL money and then go to the NFL. If he's going to go undrafted, do not go to the NFL. But let's say he does get an NFL evaluation, that he will be drafted. It's just a matter of where he's drafted. If he's going to be a day 1 or day 2 NFL draft pick, so that's rounds 1 through 3, then he should probably go to the NFL draft. He should. It just makes from a financial standpoint, I think the risk of going back to school is too great. You can get hurt if you go back to school. You could also regress at school and lose your draft stock. So if you're going to go between rounds 1 and 3, if you're LeQuint Allen, you should probably go to the NFL. However, aside from those top round picks, those salaries are fugazi. They are pixie dust. They do not exist. All right? I'm going to give you guys an example. Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is the current quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. He was Mr. Irrelevant. That means he was the last pick of the 2022 NFL draft. And by all means, Brock Purdy has been, at least by his draft stock, a really, really good pro. Fair, right? Brock Purdy in 2022, he signed a 4-year deal worth $3.7 million. $3.7 million over 4 years is a little less than $1 million a year, but that's a good contract, right? So can't LeQuint Allen go in round 7 and sign a deal like that? He absolutely could, but here's the kicker. If you look at Brock Purdy's contract, only $77,000 is actually guaranteed. What does that mean? It means that Brock Purdy, let's say he got to NFL training camp and wasn't very good at all for the 49ers in 2022. They could have just cut him. They could just cut him, send him back on the street, and it is no financial bearing on them because you know what? He signed a 4-year deal, but only $77,000 was actually guaranteed. Get my point here? Those salaries are fugazi. They are not real. Only $77,000 guaranteed. But maybe that's an extreme example because that's the last pick of the draft. What if LeQuint Allen, say, goes in round 4? I'll give you an example of that. I am a New York Jets fan, okay? So the example I'll use is from someone this past draft, and that is Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen was the 134th overall pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, which is the 4th round. Braylon Allen signed a 4-year contract worth $4.5 million. Again, sounds pretty good, right? How much of that is guaranteed, you ask? I'll tell you. $500,000. A little over it, actually. It was a little over $500,000 was guaranteed for Braylon Allen at signing. What does that mean? Again, the Jets could have just cut Braylon Allen and get no financial penalty for it. In fact, they could do that this offseason. I don't think they will. I think he'll be on the roster for another year. But just because you sign a 4-year contract in the NFL does not mean you're going to stick around for 4 years. So basically, it comes down to this for LeQuint Allen. Where is he going to get drafted if he actually gets drafted? That's the big con of the NFL is that you can get whatever evaluation, but you really don't know. Aside from a handful of players, maybe not a handful, but maybe let's say 50-ish players know exactly where they're going to go. Everyone else, you're really unsure. So it's a gamble if LeQuint Allen decides to go to the NFL. And then there's option number 3, which is transferring. The big con of transferring is what's the role? I'm not necessarily going to say comfort. Yes, he would be leaving Syracuse, but he's a New Jersey kid, and there's plenty of schools in the Northeast that he can certainly play at. So the big con is what is the role at this other school? I know that LeQuint Allen can play at a higher level program. I know he can. He's a great player. But is he going to have the same role at said program? That I am not sure about. If he comes back to Syracuse, he's the guy. He's the workhorse. If he goes to, I don't know, what's another school in the Northeast that's prominent? Penn State, right? Penn State. Let's say he goes there. This is purely a hypothetical. I don't know Penn State's depth chart off the top of my head, okay? LeQuint Allen is not going to have the same role at, let's say, a Penn State compared to what he would have at Syracuse. He wouldn't. That's the bottom line. So overall, going through all the choices and going through the pros and the cons, no sourcing on this. My gut tells me that he's going to come back to Syracuse for 1 more year. That's just my gut. But if you disagree with me, feel free to let me know in the comments section below. What do you think LeQuint Allen's decision is going to be? Once again, we are going to find out his status, I think, relatively soon. He is meeting with head coach Fran Brown. You're watching this on Monday. He is meeting with him tomorrow, December 31st, to go over his future, which again has 3 choices that he can make. As far as what is coming up on the podcast in the future, tomorrow there is a guaranteed full post-game reaction podcast. You might be saying, what's the post-game for? Well, Syracuse basketball is playing Wake Forest, I believe at 2 p.m. Eastern, and so there will be a post-game full reaction podcast from myself. Also tomorrow, it really is going to depend on timing, so I will not guarantee this will be out tomorrow or at any time for that matter, but we'll see. It's in the woodworks. A potential mini podcast on Anwar Sparrow, a backup linebacker for Syracuse this past season. He entered the transfer portal earlier in the month, but he decided to withdraw from the portal. He is going to be back with the Orange next season. So that's possible. to come up here on Locked On Syracuse. What's definite is the post-game reaction tomorrow. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs, they keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. You can find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications because, folks, you never know when I'm really going to be dropping the next podcast. Typically, full podcasts at 6 p.m. Eastern, right? Typically. But if there's breaking news and I am around to record, well, you could be getting a podcast potentially at, let's say, midnight. Or let's say news breaks in the morning. You can get it potentially earlier. So that's why you want to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And I will see you all again very soon.